Let's kick off the news analysis from, you're going to start from this juicy ministry, the Ministry of Finance. You know, that's the most sensitive ministry, if you ask me, in my opinion. You know, from this directive from the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wale Edun. He issued a directive to all MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure that they remit 100% of the IGR. It's like, you know, the beginning of the year, when a season where everybody is giving everybody targets to ensure that, you know, the target for the year is being met. And so the Ministry of Finance is starting on this new giving directive to all agencies, all ministries, to ensure that they do everything within their capacity to ensure that they remit 100% of the IGR. You know, the federal government is aware of the responsibility before him. You look at the budget, you know, a projection of 28.7 trillion naira. It's not a joke. And you need substantial IGR and revenue to drive that. Now, the Ministry of Finance is doing this to ensure that they promote accountability, transparency, and they're also working in collaboration with the Auditor General's Office to provide a form of supervision to ensure that they are not just giving the directives, but that the ministries, the department, and the agencies are complying with it. Let me start with Dr. Idahosa. We've had issues of remittances of IGR, you know, where in some instances there are discrepancies when it comes to this issue of remittances. But now the Ministry of Finance is saying it has to be 100% remittance, you know, emphasis on the word 100%. Do you think that's achievable?
Well, let me start from where you started from, to call Ministry of Finance juicy ministry, and that's a very negative connotation. And I think that's been one of the challenges that we've had in this country, that people are saying, no, there are some ministries that are juicy and there are some that are not juicy. I don't think it's about the juice. There's no juice in any ministry. So
that's just the perception now. I
don't think
there's have to play around it.
Any juice in the ministry. But that said, is to see that what the Minister of Finance or the Coordinating Minister for the Economy is trying to do is to just enforce a law that has always been there. And that's one of the things that we as a country have not done real excellently well, is in terms of accountability and taking responsibility. There's actually a circular to that effect since 2018, that every ministry that is fully funded by government, who derive, you know, both capital expenditure and overhead, should remit all their revenue 100% to the accounts. And then those who, of course, are partly funded by government, they remit 50%. So that circular has been there, but obeyed in breach. So, and I think this is where really we need to send a signal to the world that we are trying to do things differently. And then, of course, that we are beginning to be more responsible and more accountable for the things that we do. But it's to look at the logic around this, is the fact that you come to think about it. Government does every year a budget, income, expenditure. Now, what's proper to do in terms of governance is that every revenue gets into the coffers of the government first, and then the Accountant General now releases for spending. So the money does not remain with the ministry, and they don't spend it at their own instance. And then you will be able to actually monitor which area of the budget you want to put emphasis or for your plan for the year. And then you can via fund to those areas. But what we've had is that you have ministry who are collecting and they retain. Take for example, before the TSA, university generate internally generated revenue, and it don't go out of the university, and they spend it. And then they come from the back and say government is not funding university. So these are issues that we have to address. that, yeah, everybody, we are government representative. Whatever money we collect belongs to the government. It comes into the central. Then at the end of the beginning of the year, we share it and say, okay, out of all the revenue we are expecting, this is what is going here, this is what is going here. And then, of course, this also will help us to be able to plug or block the leakages that abound in the public service, where people just collect revenue and they spend it, and then after spending, you are now looking for how to justify some of all these things. And I think EFCC, the ICPC really, not EFCC this time, ICPC need really to up their game in enforcing this particular circular, because it's good for us to know that people are not just taking government money. And you know, there was a certain ministry the other day collected 100% and spend 100% in chasing the same money. And that doesn't make sense. And so it opened doors and room for corruptions and fraud. And I think this is what the Ministry of Finance is trying to do. That look, this circular has been here, this directive has been here. Now the president is saying, let's implement it. Get all your revenue, because after all, we are paying your salary. We are buying equipment, we are buying diesel. So we are the one doing the capital expenditure. So bring the money in full. That is for MDAs that are 100% funded by government, at both recurrent and capital. But for those who are partly funded, then of course those ones are remitting 50% of what they are getting. And I know that if this is done well and is properly enforced, the budget for 2024, I'm very sure, will get up to about 84%
IGR.
Not IGR, I mean in terms of performance of the budget. Because performance is directly related to the revenue that you get. So if government can oversee what revenue come into the system for this entire year, and then it is used appropriately without leakages, that alone, we can guarantee 80 to 84% budget performance, and which we tell that we may not need to borrow too much money to even fund the 2024 budget.
Well, I was going to ask, before you mentioned, you talked about the ministries that are not fully funded by government. So, because some of them would tell you that they reserve some part of it for overhead. That's why they don't remit 100%. But if the Ministry of Finance is demanding 100% remittance, that means that allocation would definitely get to the ministries, departments, agencies concerned, so that they have what to take care of their overhead, and that's where it balances up.
Yeah, no, that is for the ministries that are doing, that are partly funded. The government only invests in capital projects, are doing 50%. Now, if you are a business person and you are spending 50% of your revenue on overhead, then something is wrong. Obviously, wrong.
It depends on what the 50% amounts to.
So when you are saying overhead, now you're talking about the cost of running office every day.
Yes.
You're talking about salaries that are coming straight from federation account for most of them. So this is a problem, and this is where the fraud happens. And I think it is proper for government to have clear oversight. So what this will do, it will take us to that point we've been talking about on this table, which is a performance budget. That if people have actual need, we will be able to measure what is the actual need of these agencies. So government can see. So in terms of the preparation of budget for 2025, we can know actually what revenue the agency are capable of garnering and what are the outlets for this expenditure. So if you're able to put this together, then of course you will have a budget that can be as predictive as possible.
You know, when this story broke, or when I saw the story, my area of concern has to be the issue of implementation. It's another thing to give directives. It's another thing for it to be implemented, or for people to implement it to letters. So I was like, what would build the modality for this thing to be implemented? But I realized that the Ministry of Finance is working in collaboration with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. So what they intend to do is to perform what we call monthly reviews to ensure that there's compliance and also discipline those who might not comply with the directives. That sounds good, but I hope in reality this can be implemented. And if this is done, let's hope that the IGR could.
Yeah, but if you follow the news yesterday, you are seeing that NSITF had to issue a disclaimer because they said, oh, money we're generating, that 40% Ministry of Finance take it. They have to issue a disclaimer yesterday. You see, body language shows you that somebody is serious and is doing something. In time past, people can take it for granted. But now it will be very difficult. Because where are you going to actually put the money through? CBN, where the headmaster is? Or is it the Accountant General's office? So it's either you comply or you're stuck. So this is the issue. And I think this is also a lesson for businesses where you are able to actually put people you can trust in certain places to ensure that some certain things are done the way you want it done. So for me, really, I think implementation here is not a problem because people are already complying because they don't have option than to comply.
But the thing is, how do we even determine the percentage that this is actually 100% of the internally generated revenue?
No.
Because you see, things are not automated.
No. It's automated. All government revenue, as at today, they passes through remitter. Nobody collect cash. So even if you want to buy, for example, a scratch card from WAEC or NECO, you buy it through remitter. So remitter wire that money to the CBN. So it comes to the CBN, but it comes to the companies or the agency or ministry or department's accounts in CBN, and then they can access it. That's what has been happening. So the revenue is coming in. It's not as if that somebody is waiting on the road and using receipt to collect money. No. Now, anything you want to do with government, even if it is 500 naira, it has to go through remitter. So going through remitter means, of course, this money was first of all hit the CBN. So CBN can have a clear view of what revenue is coming in. So they know that this thing, and that's why even for internally generated revenue for the university students also go through remitter. But the fact that they have access to their own account, because within remitter, each of the agencies have their account where this money come into. So I think that is the thing. So what government needs just to do is to supervise from CBN and from the Accountant General's office so that the release and the use had to be monitored. So what government has done now is that this 100% is not going to these agencies' accounts anymore. There is a new account that is created within remitter where that money is going to come into. And then the Ministry of Finance can oversee it and know what is happening.
Interesting. Now let's move on to the education sector. The latest ranking from Times Higher Education, talking about world university rankings for 2024. You know, I find this story interesting. Our own university here, the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, achieved the Premier Agricultural University in Africa and secured the 7th position globally. There are several competitors from several universities, but I find it interesting if a local university like a federal university, but in Nigeria, a Nigerian university, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, could come 7th position globally. How do you receive their names?
Well, it's well received, and I think the university itself has done well over time in terms of government too has invested in that university, and so much research also is going on there, although we expect them to do real more in terms of finding solutions to our challenge. I have a couple of friends who passes through that university, and they can test really in terms of quality, in terms of resource provision, in terms of manpower that is in place to ensure that they are delivering value. And I think those are the things that you're ranking. And then, of course, looking at the research and the infrastructure that are put in place to ensure that you get a conducive learning atmosphere. And I think all those things are in place, and the government has actually done a whole lot in supporting that institution. And they have also done well in the area of research, just like Ahmadu Bello too has been doing excellently well in terms of agricultural research and the rest of it. But yeah, it's quite heartwarming to know that at least we have a University in Nigeria ranking here among the agricultural universities globally. But I think there's so much more to do with the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and other federal institutions and research institutes in Nigeria. We need to do more in terms of research. Number one, it's still not convincing for me that our agricultural products raw can access the European market, because we are told that some of them have some element of cyanide in them, which are carcinogenics. Now, research should be able to take this off these products. Now, we're also talking about product yield. For example, somebody gave an analysis that if you plant an acre of rice in Thailand, it can give you up to about 16 tons of rice. But here, if you plant 1 acre of rice, it cannot give you about 3 tons. So the gap also is wide. In terms of product yield, we really need to also do more and do a lot of research and see that, yes, we are maximizing the land that we are having, and we are producing competitively with other people in other climes. We're also going to see the development, you know about, was it yesterday we're talking about a sexy agriculture? You know,
I hope you're wearing paradise for that on the morning show.
So we really need to make agriculture attractive, and this for me is quite important, so that the emphasis really for this university is to focus clearly on agricultural issues and its value chain, without really necessarily taking attention to other things that are distracting. In this way, we are able to actually have a university that is real at the base of our development. And this is important for us. If there's anything we should leverage as a people, it's agriculture. Because number one, God is fair to us. You can see early this morning, rain everywhere in December. So this means that, of course, you can plant anything, and then, of course, it can grow anywhere. God has given us good weather. God has given us good land. So we need to take advantage of it, and the universities of agriculture really find a way to leverage these opportunities for us. And then, of course, we can also be selling globally, because some of our products cannot access global market because of standard and quality. And this is what the universities should be doing.
Kudos to the Federal University of Agriculture, but I want to see more relationship between the research institutes and, of course, the farmers, and so that we can have the effects. So it's not just you do research on paper, but it doesn't translate to what goes on really in the agricultural sector. But it's good to know that they've been assessed in terms of teaching, in terms of research, and a lot of other things. So that's good. And I hope that not just that university, other universities of agriculture follow suit, talk to their colleagues and try to know what's happening there, what can we emulate. But we'd like to see more partnership between the university and, of course, the real farmers through agric extension, so that you can provide them with knowledge, up-to-date knowledge on better ways to do agriculture. So we move away from the crude method, we move away from subsistence farming, and we move to ways that ensure food security.
You know, in Israel today, they talk about precision agriculture. That you can actually have a farm and determine the quantum or the number of fruits you will get from a tree. And this is possible today. Now, you're also finding in the Middle East, now people are also doing these vertical farms. And all these inventions are happening. We also need to see how we can pioneer those research, that we can begin to produce some certain things, and soilless farming is happening already. So we need to see our institution also going ahead, not just to follow, but to also lead and provide leadership in terms of pioneering and breaking new grounds.
And this will make agriculture more attractive.
Attractive, yeah.
I didn't want to use the
not
word.
to use that word, right?
It really can become sexy, yes.
All right, Blessing, you have the next
Okay,
one.
yeah. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has stressed the role of the private sector in realizing the federal government's CNG initiative, and he's called on the private sector to embrace it because, according to him, it will be a cheaper alternative to petrol, which is expensive because of the removal of petrol subsidy. And he said the president has committed 100 billion to the CNG initiative, and it's been supported by the Nigeria Labour Congress. So the CNG initiative, converting vehicles from using petrol to using the compressed natural gas, which for now seems to be a cheaper alternative. What's your take on the emphasis on it, calling on the private sector to embrace it? Is that a route to go? Is it sustainable? Is it an alternative that will give long-term gain?
Well, I think that's exactly what we should do. Government has no business doing business. Government are regulators, and so what government has done is to create that enabling environment for this CNG implementation to happen. And one of the basic decisions that government has taken recently was the fact that they have taken VAT completely off any CNG product or even LNG product. So what this means is that government is also incentivizing this process. Now, it is now us who are the private individual to take advantage of this incentive and make good use of it. That I drive a car, I don't need government to tell me, help me buy petrol, help me buy gas. Now, we're having people to now learn new skills in terms of the ability to convert CNG, petrol cars to CNG, and then, of course, to be able to also play in that value chain of the CNG completely. So this is a private initiative, and we have to embrace it. Now, what that means is that if a lot of people are using CNG gases, then the consumption of petrol also will drop to some bearable minimum. And that, of course, also saves some money for the public. So government has done what they should do. They are prioritizing it. They are saying, oh, all the things, both the one we are going to import from the outside, the one that are fabricated locally, just take away VAT so that it can become cheaper and affordable by the people. But now, government can start a CNG business. The private sector needs to take advantage of what government has done, the good way of government offering to us, and see how we can leverage it for our good and the good of society at large. For me, it's a good call, and I think that people also are seeing business in that area. And so because it's an opportunity opening up, and we're going to be thinking in the days to come, in terms of innovation, what can we do differently, and to be able to maximize and take full advantage of the incentives that government has provided.
Well, is it really cheaper? What about the cost of conversion? And when more people move to using CNG, would that not in time increase the cost of CNG?
Yeah, but you see, conversion is one of course. So what would have lost in conversion, you gain eventually if you compare to buying petrol. So this is what it is. It's not as if we are not going to be converting your vehicle every day.
No, but if you take the amount of money, as at around 2019, when the former president wanted to implement that, the conversion cost was put at about 240 or 250,000 naira. I don't know what the current cost is, but how many motorists can afford that at once? And then when more people move to that,
it's a choice.
Increase it.
It's a decision, it's a choice you have to make. You see that you want to be buying the expensive petrol, or you save yourself some money. So in the short run, it's an investment that will eventually take pressure from you in the longer run. So if you convert today, you are not going to convert tomorrow. So you do that one for the life cycle of that particular vehicle, then of course you know that this vehicle is CNG. Or if you want to do it hybrid, you can also do hybrid.
So you can use whichever
that is available. So when you want to use petrol, you use petrol. If you want to use CNG, you use CNG. So all these possibilities is what we should be exploring. And this is where the private sector really need to come in, that we are not doing full CNG. So that if the prices changes tomorrow, that there's a need, and then you have to need to convert back again to petrol. So we must find that technology to be able to do whether a hybrid of both CNG and petrol at the same time. Just the way we are hybriding petrol and electric cars at the moment. So what that will mean is that you spend this money up front once, and then you gain it subsequently in terms of daily refilling of your tank. So I think that is what it is. So you spend 240,000, then of course over time you are able to gain it, and it's much more profitable for you than having to be buying petrol maybe currently at 586, or in some places, or some people are talking
600 plus now.
Some people are talking 600, some people talk, yeah, it depends on where you're buying. So if you're buying from NNPC, you won't pay 600. So these are the opportunities that are there in the market that we as a people have to take advantage of. But don't forget that, like you said, petrol is still underpriced, because if we are fully deregulated, the downstream, you will see that the prices have to reflect the global market price. What we are selling today is not reflecting the global market price. And that's where we don't know how the NNPCL is doing the magic. Whether people are accusing them of subsidizing the petrol, because it's not reflective of the market value. And if we have truly liberalized, and I think the market should determine, and the range should be between that 1,200 and 1,500. That should be for a liter.
If I get what you're saying, make hay while the sun shines, right?
Yeah.
I like that initiative. It's the duty of the government to set the pace for, proper governance, and that's what they've done, to set the pace. I also, in fact, interesting, I saw some of these buses last week, the CNG initiative, the buses during the festive period. I saw them around in Lagos, people, taking advantage of that. But like you said, there's a need for private investors to come in, because it's just for government to create the enabling environment. So to create jobs, I see opportunity to create jobs. I see opportunity for investors to also make money. It's a matter of time. The pricing will come down. When you're just starting something, it's always very expensive because you have few people patronizing it. But with more outlets and with more people, let's hope that will get better. I think we need to shift our attention to what is happening at the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The NGX started on a very good note, and it's a good news, witnessing a market capitalization gain of 666 billion, closing at 41.5 trillion naira compared to 40.9 trillion on Friday. It's like the beginning of the year, so there's this what you call investors' enthusiasm, and I think that's what is taking place. You have more insurance companies, telecom firms, and five-star hotels, topping the ladder of the table. What does this suggest to us? That was the beginning of the year, starting on a good note, NGX.
Well, for me, it's a good news. Some of us missed some bus yesterday, seeing what happened at the stock. So that is what it is. And this trend had been since the inauguration. And it just tells you that it's not a fluke. Maybe. That the market is gaining some confidence. Yeah. And of course, business people are beginning to believe that government is having more integrity, because that's what's showing in the market. People are beginning to get into stock buying. And all the stocks are doing excellently well. And that's beautiful for us. And see the huge capitalization. From when the president came in, of 400 and something billion, now you're talking about 660 billion. So this is to show to you that a lot has happened, and a lot is happening, and many more will still happen. And all we just pray is that government has the courage to continue on this path. of delivering on its promises.